We must believe that things end, things end at the right time. Things end, things end in due time. This time, it will be my time, yeah. In due time, in my time. I'm so glad that it's my time. Well, this is going to be interesting because I still have to release the other episode I did, which I think I wanted to call it At Least. I feel like that's such a good I don't know, there was such potency behind that simple word, at least. And I feel as if though it's going to tie into maybe what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm gonna try not to be long. I don't really care if I am long. If I am, you'll get over it. Hopefully you will. I pray you will, because I pray that it's gonna be something that is encouraging and honest, real, and thoughtful, thought provoking. So anyway, let's get started. What is up, you guys? I don't forgot my intro, but this is the BIYG podcast. How do I start this thing off? Oh, anyway, it's the BIYG podcast. I'm your host, Stefan. Believe in your growth. I done forgot. It done left my memory. Well, it'll come back sometime. But today, today, it's 6/17/2025. Almost 2 o'clock, 5 minutes till. And I've been a little slothful. But you know what? It's okay sometimes because I've been trying to really figure some things out and just look into my life in the direction that I am trying to go, or thinking of steps like progressively improving, because I think this is also going to play into the conversation I'm having today. Knowing what to do next oftentimes really stumps me. And, I know how to plant seeds, but I think in a lot of areas, I don't really know how to tend to the seedling, to the new growth and all of the other things, pruning and stuff like that, in their various how do you say, I guess, respective areas, and let's say whether it's music or writing or politics or education. Sometimes I don't really know all the intricate things to do, as I've literally done it to plants. And so, I've just been thinking about it because it's so easy, for me to plant a seed, water it, and then, at most of the time now it's just like waiting on God. You know, there is the inspections that you have to do to make sure that there's not, certain kinds of pests or vermin and all of these other things running rampant, consuming or devouring and destroying the plant. But then there's just some things in life are straightforward, right? A seed's purpose, a literal seed's purpose, and I guess a spiritual or, hypothetical, theoretical, the purpose of a seed is to produce, right? And so if I put a tomato seed in the ground, it should produce tomatoes, right? Whereas, let's say, for most of us that aren't really into agriculture or anything like that, we may not have a more, how would you say, I dare say, necessity. Because let's think about it. If we had two choices, some people would, the foolish people, but if we had two choices, you know, and it was between food and music, I believe most people would choose food. Most people would choose food because they want to sustain their life, because the hopes of going forward and being able to change the trajectory of what's going on, or even just believing, having hope, right? And so, point is with that, the seed for the tomato is going to produce. There is a knowing that that is what it was created to do. That is the purpose of it. Whereas, let's say with a poem, with a book, with music, fashion designs, they're not always guaranteed success. I don't care how much effort, how much time you put in it, which I kind of loathe the time frame we're in, because people make it seem like it is always easy to be successful. It is and it's not. I mean, I can go into, well, how do you view success? Because if someone views success differently, it's always going to be easy to be successful. But we're talking about longevity and livelihood, productivity, and fruitfulness in your endeavors and efforts. We're talking about a return on investment. We're not just talking about emotions and things like that. We're talking about there actually being support and a demand or even a desire for what you have um released into the earth, right? And so, I guess understanding that and looking into what I was kind of peering into a little bit earlier, which is not knowing the next step for certain things, but or maybe I do know the next steps, and because the immediate, I guess, fruit of a situation is not there, it gets discouraging, or you get sidetracked because you start looking for immediate fruit elsewhere. And I think that has been one of the biggest things I've wrestled with in my life is, and I would say it's always going to be my responsibility to how I manage and deal with situations. But we have to realize people can influence us to make decisions. And if we don't have a sound board, a sound counsel, and people that are wise in such areas, and people that have believed God and seen the evidence of believing in God, it's kind of hard to make wise and faithful decisions. And so I can say I've definitely made decisions that were looking for the quick result rather than trusting God. And I mean, it happens, and I don't blame myself for doing it, but want to do better. I think I'll always strive to want to do better, which is why it's okay to me to make and take the risk, whether it's calculated or not. At some point, I don't think I don't think calculated risk are a thing. And I mean, yeah, you can try your best and do all of this calculations, and you can do all of these projections and stuff like that. But in the end, success comes from God. That's what I believe. You can do and have all of these plans in your heart, but in the end, the plan of God will prevail. And I think oftentimes even believers forget that it is the Lord who not only orders your footsteps but gives you success in your plan. And so for me, as I look back and wondering, sometimes not knowing what the next step should be or what I should be striving to do now that I've done this, but realizing I've done a lot of things in my past. Because I was talking about this on my podcast before, and you can't worry too much about what other people say. You have to know the fact, and you have to know the truth about who you are. And I know that I work hard. I know that I'm creative and I'm purposeful in a lot of the things I do. And I want that for a lot of people. I would rather people be occupied rather than be preoccupied. I think there are a lot of people who have jobs and they're preoccupied. Their time is taken up, and that's why they don't have time to be occupied with the things of God. They don't have time to be busy with purpose because they're distracted by the need to save their own flesh. And that kind of gets off track to what I'm wanting to talk about, I guess. But it's just wondering, how can well, not how can I guess I'm trying to piece it together now that I've done all this talking. But I mean, I I want to be successful, you know, and I want to begin to feel like the satisfaction that I felt with my garden or like certain produce or certain what vegetation or whatever, because that stuff is instant. It's instant. Where even if I feel like you have to look at it the way I see it. Yes, I planted the seed months ago or whatever, because some seeds come up in about 20 to 30 days, which is still a month, but you know what I'm saying? Some stuff come up quicker than others. But granted, I did this and there is an expected result. Whereas let's say I can expect, I can do it in faith, expect to see a return on my investment or whatever it might be, whether I invest in stocks, whether I started up a company, whatever the case might be, I can have that expectation on the inside. But it's like there's two variations of what expectation really is. because the seed is expected. It was designed to do that, right? But then there's a different level of expectation when I expect my music to perform well, because that expectation doesn't have, I guess, a due date, if that makes sense. Whereas like a plant, a tomato can take maybe what, 60 to 70 days to mature. That's probably too early. Let's say 75 till about 85 days to mature. There's a set expected date for that fruit to be in your hand or it be appearing, right? And that's not the case with your book. That's not the case with your t-shirt line. That's not the case with a lot of the other things that we do. And it's like wanting and desiring to stay, I don't want to say encouraged, because I feel like that's not where I'm trying to go with this. But even after, I guess, doing the one thing, how do you stay fruitful? How do you stay productive? How do you stay producing? Like after I do this, I want to be able to take care of that seed, because the song was produced. It's a seed. It needs to be nurtured. I need to know the steps in order to, I guess, prune it, nurture it, water it, because sometimes you're not going to get the rain. Sometimes, you don't get a little boost, from whatever the case might be. Maybe it's a friend, family, or whatever, or maybe that particular blessing ain't granted toward you, where God just allows it to take off and you didn't do nothing but post it, or whatever. You didn't do anything but one thing, right? And so sometimes you have to, I've done it myself in my physical garden, you have to take water and water the plants yourself. you know some plants grow differently than others, and so the way one thing took off may not be the way another thing takes off. And so it's always wondering, okay, well, what are the steps now? And like I was trying to say earlier, I feel like that's where I'm at, especially now. I've always been a proactive person in the gift, skills, talents, and abilities God has given me, but I desire to know, how do I level up? How do I have the mindset and the mentality of success? And I mean, in I believe God wants his people to be successful. In what way? I don't know. I can't say for each and every person, but I do know that God has made us to create and to add value in the land of the living. And so for me, I know what I believe God revealed to me, and the multiple ideas God has given to me. And so that's my walk and my journey. And I know the truth and the story that comes behind that. But I really want to know, you know, even though I may not have gotten, let's say, the guidance and the hand holding, or even the mentorship, from gurus or family or whatever. We can go down a list. May not have gotten that. I'm in a place now where I do want to say this. Technology is a blessing, but it also can be a curse. But it's up to the individual to decide what they do with it. And for me, I have been deciding to teach myself. you know, um, I was in church, and one of my leaders, I guess most people really assume that somebody has equipped me with this knowledge on how to tend and care for, the garden and the produce, or the plants that I have. And, I don't see it as a bad thing, but YouTube and simply Googling things is what has equipped me, given me the information and the wisdom, earthly wisdom needed. And I think there's a lot of God behind it too. But I've done my job. I took the seed of what was planted in my heart, I think maybe when I was a junior in high school, and at a time when it was ready to come up, it came up. And so, I can't take credit for that. That was a God thing, because God planted it in good ground, because one thing about it, you have to be good ground. You have to be something, you have to be, I don't I hate to say something, but something that God can use. And to me, that is fertile ground, and it's not always about knowing the purpose or the intention of a thing, knowing why or when or where. It's just going with the flow. And sometimes you just got to go with the flow, because I'll be personally honest. I don't know every little thing about why I do what I do. I just do it. And then the results of it come whenever it comes. And I know I'm all over the place, but going back to wanting to know the steps, because, I shared this a little bit of, maybe in like the last two podcast episodes, but 2 to 3 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, that was the first time that I started planting stuff. I got some seeds for my birthday, and I think I don't know if it was the preceding week or before that. I went outside and I dug 4 holes. 4 holes. Now they were probably 2 by 2 square feet, maybe 2 by 2 square feet each hole. And I don't know if that's how you actually say that measurement wise or whatever. I don't know. I don't care about that. What is it? It's not geography. Lord, geography is the land, but that's not. Lord have mercy. Anyway, so yeah, I went out there and dug holes, and I tried to make this plot for myself so that I can plant. And to me, I was very proud of myself to realize you really went out there and did something you had never done before. And it wasn't this old big thing. You just went and did it. You just went and did it. And I was so proud of me for that, because at the time, y'all, there was some things that was being thought about me and maybe even said about me. But the truth of God is always gonna prevail. That's what I'm gonna say there. But you know, that was something that happened, and I planted those seeds, and lo and behold, I'm not sure if I told this, but there was some deer that went and they nibbled on my plants toward the end. Toward the end, they nibbled on my okra plants, and it's okay. It was a little disheartening, but it was kind of like it's whatever. But I think it wasn't too much later that um somebody ended up cutting my plants down, and I wasn't done with them. And so, that was it was like another tug at my heart, because it's like you try to do something and you try to be, um I don't know how to say it, but you try to create something and do something, even no matter how big or how small, and then there's just the odds, the opposition that comes up against it. And I know we certain things happen by accidents, but accidents don't mean it's void of the enemy. Accidents don't mean that it's okay all the time. And sometimes we try to, I guess, how do you say, nullify someone's pain because it was an accident. But I mean, I don't know. Pain is pain. It's gonna hurt, and even if we do accidentally do something, we should still try to correct it. But that happened, and lo and behold, the next year came. I didn't stop. I did it differently. I started to take my seeds and I put them in pots. So I went from in ground to planting in pots, and this time I had way more than I had the first year. And so, granted, I only had a very few, and the very few I had the first year, I ate what came off of that. The second year, I had, I feel like 6 times, 10 times more than what I had the first year, and I wanted to, even though I could have ate most of that and probably all of it, and it would have been good for me, especially knowing the situation I was in. But my sole purpose is to help people, right? And so I know, so we say in order to help others, you got to help yourself. That's true, but also selflessness, right? And so I know some people may not agree with that or see it that way, but I don't know. I'll know when it's time to cater to me. And so I think you have to be in tune with God to know when you got to do protect yourself versus when it's going to be all right, that you're looking out for somebody else and denying yourself. So anyway, this time, yeah, I had more, and with the more, I had some for me, and I also made an effort to give to others. And I'm gonna cut that short. It was a good experience. I love it. And now we are in this year where I have way more, and I have more pots. I have bought more soil with donations. I have gotten a travel, some gloves, some cages. a few things I got like a seed tray so that I can plant, some on the inside and transfer them whenever they get big enough. There's things that I have done, and it seems like the progression of doing things in faith, it is just and being resilient about it, because whether or not people believe or notice what I was doing, I was gonna do it regardless. And you know, I guess you look at some areas of your life, and I guess I'll finish up this third year. But you look at some areas of your life, and you kind of, if you're like me, wish that it would happen in other ways, because I love music, I love writing, I love all of this other stuff. But I was saying to myself earlier, it just doesn't come. It's okay. The only thing that doesn't come easy to me with like music and writing and stuff like that is the inevitable expectation date. You get what I'm saying? Like the tomato coming at this set date. You know, that's the only thing, because if I could sing, I would sing for the rest of my life. I mean, I of course I would love to be paid to sing, but I do it for free. I do a lot of things for free. I grow produce for free, right? There's not a lot in my life that I wouldn't do for free, because I love God and I love me and I love other people. So it's easy for me, right? But that still doesn't change the fact that I do want to see a level of success and a level of, I see something in you, like for it to translate the way it did for my garden, the donation, let's say like donations and stuff that I got from my garden. Cause there are people, in our lives who know we do certain things. And granted, it's not their responsibility to do anything, but you got to trust. I guess like me, I'm trusting God that whenever that door opens, it opens. I'm not going to complain and try to whine about it, but it becomes one of those things I have thought about. And it's like, Lord, want it to be easy like this, but there's some things that I probably won't relay in this episode that make sense as to why. But I've been known why God has held me up from certain things and allowed certain things, because I'm gonna be real. If I was as consistent as I, let's say, addicted to consistency, because I'd prefer to say that. If I was addicted to consistency today, there'd be a lot of things that I have picked up that I should not be dabbling and dibbling in, because I've come into contact with a lot of stuff, but it was the grace of God. Some people may disagree, but my lack of consistency made it where it's easy for me to drop something and not really think about it. It's easy for me to drop up a bad habit that I shouldn't have been playing and messing around with anyway, you know. But sometimes you never know why you are the way you are. But you gotta trust God sometimes that it is for his glory that you are the way you are. And so I'm not mad that I don't take up things easily, and I don't force myself to be consistent with everything. Everything doesn't need, I don't know, like I've said before, and maybe not recently, but you can be doing the wrong thing consistently, and I don't want to do that. And so we may not realize it's bad or it's the wrong thing, but we can be that kind of person doing the wrong thing consistently and then seeing produce and seeing results, but not realize it's a detriment to our soul and our being. But that's another thing. I just on to the third year, more land, more space, more whatever, just more. And that kind of is the thing for me, wanting more and wanting to do more. And it's just like, I mean, having the resources available to do it, and granted, there are a lot of people in our lives, and sometimes you're not gonna have I don't know. I really don't even know the purpose of this episode, because I really just wanted to, I guess, share the fact that the not knowing everything. And sometimes it's okay to get help, I guess, because like even with me, I was saying earlier, I'm looking up and Googling and, Chat GPT, or not Chat GPT, but Grok. I like Grok. That's how you say it, Grok. I like Grok. It's a AI, but I use it as really like I wouldn't say a mentor, but I use it as basically a virtual assistant. I do, because there's a lot of stuff that I've learned, like CFSA. Now that's something I guess for agriculture, like farmers and stuff like that, to be able to connect with other businesses that need certain produce for their business or whatever. I'm not too sure. I haven't looked into it yet. But either way, I would need a $30, which I have that, but I would need it in order to actually become a part of that so I can get the connections I need in order to, let's say, if I wanted to grow arugula or I wanted to grow a salad mix, right? I would need, well, I wouldn't need it, but it would be helpful. It's just a tool, it's a resource, to be able to connect to other people and make it easier for me to sell what I have or be a business, right? And so that's just, I mean, that's one thing that I've learned. And it's like, well, I wouldn't have known that. And there's people around me who probably do know it, but I've in my life, I've asked people for help sometimes, and sometimes you're not gonna get it. And so I'm not a person to keep begging people. I'm gonna go and find out how to do it myself. And I thank God that we are in a time where you can find out how to do it yourself. And it sucks because no man should do anything alone. Man was not meant to be alone. And I definitely believe that when it comes to skills, talents, and abilities, like no man should have to be a DIY, Bob the Builder. You shouldn't have to do everything by yourself. But I mean, until that point, what are you gonna do? You're gonna sit around and keep waiting on people that God maybe told to do it, but they disobedient and they don't want to do it. You cannot do that, right? I mean, I believe God gives you the ability to do it just as much as He gave them the instruction to do it, because they already have the natural know-how to do it. But when one won't do it, God will raise up another, and sometimes God has to raise you up in order to get the job done. I'm a singer. I shouldn't have to produce music. I shouldn't have to know how to play a piano. I shouldn't have to know how to do anything else. I shouldn't. But it's not gonna hurt me to. It's not gonna hurt me to. I'm a writer. I shouldn't have to know how to, put my book together and do all this other stuff. I should be the one writing. I should be the one scribing. And then you have someone else who can do it. That's how jobs are created. That's how we keep other people doing their purpose. But that's a whole nother conversation. But my thing is, I'm here now wanting to understand, and I'm pretty sure there's other people out there. What are the next steps so that they can actually see the success, or even, I guess, take the steps of faith? Because like I've said before, I believe I'm in a moment, and I have definitely planted myself in a moment where it's like God said to Abraham, go to a place that I will show you. So I want to be proactively moving, right? I don't believe in I just recently made a post about, I guess, like, how do you say it? I'd have to find it on Facebook. Let me see. But I just made a post about waiting, and only true waiting comes when you've planted the seed. I mean, anything before that, that's not waiting. You're not waiting. You're afraid, you're fearful, you're lazy. There's a lot of things, but if you haven't planted anything, you're not waiting. You're not waiting you know. But I want to read it because I mean, it's something that I believe, I genuinely believe. And I can look at every year of my life knowing I did something. And I really want people to be able, well, to say better, say something better, you know what I'm saying? But at least the bare minimum, say I did something. At least I did something. And whether it produced the way I wanted it to or not, I did something, right? But I do also, I don't want just us to be able to, well, us to say we did something and not, I would love everybody see the fulfillment of what they did, what they started, what they took up. I would love that. And sometimes it's not going to be that, but I would definitely pray and hope that, we started it and we did everything possible. We did everything possible. We didn't just leave, that seed out there hoping that it would rain, waiting for the rain and letting the field get all dusty and dry and thirsty, wanting and waiting for faithfulness. You know what I'm saying? Waiting for diligence, waiting for someone who was, meticulous about the work that they started. I don't want that. I want people to at least say, I tried and I gave it my all, and I can go to the grave satisfied knowing that I did my part. And like I said, I don't know if I said this in one of the episodes, but I told God after the deers came and nibbled on them watermelon. I said, well, I'm not gonna worry about it, God, because I did this for you. And this is your project, really. If you don't take care of it, it's not happening. And there was at least one thing. There was at least one thing I could have did. There's probably a few other things, but I felt in my heart there was at least one thing that I could have did to try one us go a step further to try to protect or at least do something to prevent this from happening. And I did that one thing, and after that, it was no longer my responsibility. God know my situation, and that's why all that was required of me was to do one thing, was to ask a simple question, and I did it, and I let it go. I let it go. And so to go back to the post that I made on Facebook, I said, you can't expect a harvest without the wait. You can't expect the wait without a planted and nurtured seed. So if I ever say I'm waiting on God, you best believe I sowed in faith through good deed. And so to me, you know, I'm in that place where how do I nurture my seeds? I keep saying that really over and over again, even if I say it in different words. That's where I'm at. How do I nurture my seed? And I really encourage people, there are some people who aren't really tech savvy, but don't wait for people. I don't know, let go everything someone has said to you, right? There have been plenty of people who have said things to me, and I get everyone responds differently. And some people be like, well, everybody's not as strong as you, or whatever some people resort to, the excuses we have and we make oftentimes to just stay in our pity and our really laziness or whatever. But at the end of the day, people are going to say whatever they want to say, you know. I mean, I listen. The very moment God gives me the ability to, I'm gonna try to do everything God has given me to do. I don't care about what nobody said. The only reason it's not done is because I don't have the provision to do it in my disposal. That is the only reason why 5 of the 10 businesses God has given me have not been started, or whatever. 5 of the 10 dreams God has given me has not been started. That's the only reason, because of the provision, because of the moment and the time and the whatever, right? That's the only reason. And people will not be one of them. People will not be found. Somebody said this and somebody said that is not going to be found amongst why you didn't do what I said to do. It's always going to be, well, God, I did what you said. Where was the people that you released with the seed? Because I mean, where was it? Where was it? That will be my only thing when I get back to God. And I know some people are not gonna like that, but I promise you, you are not going to find me. God will not. I detest it. God finding me, looking at me and saying, why you didn't do what I asked you to do. I detest that. That will not happen. I don't want that to happen as long as I'm living. I have too much opportunity and too much time, even if I only got 2 days left, to be a blessing and to pursue every good thing that God has placed in me to do. I have this too much out here to do, you know. And like I said, the only thing that's stopping me is the provision and the okay of God, because the okay of God is the success of God. Every step I make, every direction I move in, you know, I trust God to order my footsteps. I don't trust my plans. I don't trust any idea that I come up with. It's a matter of going to a place that I will show you. And I believe that whenever I'm in that place, and the okay will be so, it won't be like this. It's just gonna be something that can't be comprehended. This is the place. It won't be able to be fathomed, you know. But that's why, like I keep saying, and I'm gonna keep saying, I'm in the place of trying to know how to nurture my seeds, because that to me, I see is opening the door. And I guess we could talk about consistency, but it's not. It's more than consistency. It's more than consistency. God doesn't need my consistency. God needs my, well, this is a synonymous word, but faithfulness. You know, because my thing is, like I said, not every plant grows up the same. It doesn't need the way you did the last thing. It needs the wisdom of God, which is why it needs your faithfulness. It needs your faithfulness. It doesn't need you to do what you did to the last situation. It needs you to be a hearer of the word and a doer of the word. It needs you to be attentive. It needs you to be one who perceives, believes, and receives the word of God, right? The instructions. And so that is why I'm kind of glad I stayed on it, but wanting to know how to nurture, whether it's like I said, my music, whether it's my garden and growing that space so that way I can have a large field to be able to actually do something for my community in the future, whether it's having music worldwide and people, hearing the voice that God has given me, whether it's writing or speaking or dancing or performing, whatever the case might be, I want to know how to nurture these things, you know? And so with some things, it's more apparent than others, but I'm telling you for 100%, I would have never thought, to consider reaching out to a restaurant. I don't know why that seems common, but I wouldn't have thought of it. I wouldn't have thought of it. Reach out to a restaurant. Okay. So and that's stuff that people who have experienced or even well, that's another conversation. But I just would have never thought of it. I would have never thought of it. And so me having like these little intricate conversations with Grok, the AI, is really revealing some things to me. And I try to be prayerful, about the things that I release or the things that I even communicate with this kind of AI situation. But other than that, like I said, I use it for a virtual assistant. I try to use it for a virtual assistant or looking at things from a different perspective because like I said, there's so much out here that I'm just not privy to. And I've all my life I've tried to be aware of things. I've tried to be active in going forward. But you got to realize, and I'll say this, and this might sound bitter to someone, but we oftentimes have a lot of people in our lives who I'll say this might be backwards. Number one, they don't want you to go forward because they're not going forward. There are a lot of people like that, whether we think so or not. But then on the other number two, there are people who don't know how to go forward because, like you, they didn't have the resources or the connections or the understanding. And I know some people will say that's an education thing. It shouldn't have to be. Why do you have to pay or $10,000s for someone to be able to want you to be successful and give you keys to be successful in the field that you are gifted and anointed and blessed to be successful in? To me, that doesn't make sense. But to each their own. I don't knock education. I think education is beautiful. If you need it, and especially if it is required for the field that you are going and pursuing in, you need to be there, right? But everything else it don't require that. It don't require all that to me. It don't require all that to me. But and especially for the areas in the fields in which I have been blessed to be proficient in. And so, you know, I s- I know this has been a whole lot of what is he trying to say? Find out the steps, I guess, that you need to progress, and make make the effort. Make the effort, every day to walk toward, I guess, a better vision for a better vision, better life, I don't know, because some things are okay. Some things it doesn't have to always be more and more and more and more and more. But I don't know, I'm at a place now where I want too much and I have too little, if that makes sense. Like the things, like I said, with all that God has given me, the only thing that is stopping it is the resources. That is the only thing that is stopping every idea. But my thing is, God wouldn't give it to you if you couldn't do it. And so that's why it's like, okay, that's why, again, and I believe that God won't give to somebody something they can't pursue, they can't do. If God placed it in your heart, it can be done. And so that's why I know, have I done everything? That's the question. Am I taking every little step? Whatever it is, have I done my part? Because if I've done my part, then I can look to God with the courage that I should have as a believer and as a child, and say, okay, Lord, this is what I need. I've done this. I need you to bless this. I need you to breathe on this. I need you to reveal and elevate this certain thing to these people and this kind of whatever you want to do, because God, there is no one better than you. There is no one greater than you. So whatever you're going to do, let your will be done. But something needs to be done so that the purpose that you have given me can be fulfilled and it can be carried out in the land of the living. So this is what I want. And I have come into a place where I'm trying to be more deliberate and exact in the words that I use and the things that I ask or even demand from God for the purposes of the kingdom. And I know some people may not like demand, but I don't really demand anything. I was just using that word. But um actually no, I did demand that God protect the garden. I did, because my thing is, like I said, my heart was there in it. My heart is in it, and I feel like you gave it to me for a purpose. So you gonna have to protect that. You're gonna have to do something. And I think, you know, you have to be bold like that. I don't want no weak Christian in my life who's scared to talk to God. I just don't. If God is the CEO, the king, the father, my leader, protector, if I put all my trust in you and I'm a civilian, I am a child, I am all of this stuff in your kingdom, you owe me this. You have a responsibility to me to be good. And so there's just, whether people realize it or not, I'm gonna talk to God how I know is respectful and how I know we are allowed to, what I believe. But anyway, I mean, I'm trying to walk in the nurturing of certain things, because it's easy. It's discipline. You have to be disciplined. That is one area that is just like, but I feel like the discipline and the consistency are almost hand in hand in a way, because you never really know. You never know why God doesn't allow or does allow certain things. And I'm telling you, if I would have been consistent like a year ago, if consistency would have been in my bones, stuff that I had picked up that I should not have been doing would have stayed and made residency and would have opened doors to like more demonic stuff that was going on. And you just don't got time for that. So sometimes you got to be grateful that you probably got this proclivity that you don't really understand. You got to be grateful. In all things, give thanks to God, because I believe even the flaw that we see or we can't digest, what we perceive to be a flaw, is a blessing to our souls, and we don't realize it. We do not realize that it is a blessing that we don't do everything the way other people do it or the way the world says it should be done, or even, we don't have certain intricate aspects and attributes that other people possess. You got to be proud and happy the way God made you, because it might just save your life. The man that wishes to save his life shall surely lose it. And so, I'm glad, I'm happy that I am the way that I am. And I know that with my desire for conviction, my desire for chastisement, it's going to help me to become and hone who God intended for me to be. So, I know this is all over the place, but I mean, I guess I'll call this like a diary entry, because I wanted to share my thoughts, and really express, I guess, the level of joy that I'm having. I mean, it's underlying, but it's there. It wasn't the main topic of conversation, but it's definitely there, because to see growth, and even if it's taken 3 years, but to know that, and it's not a growth that has anything to do with anyone else. It's growth that has something to do with me going forward and keeping moving, regardless to what it's looked like. Like, that kind of consistency matters, in the face of whether or not it works out or not. Putting songs out and doing all of this other stuff, writing poems, whether or not people like it or not. Even if, because one thing about it, I'll say this, and maybe someone can relate to it. I don't have to whore out my gift. I don't have to prostitute out what God has given me. I'm not chasing money. I'm chasing after God. And I guess what does that mean? I'm chasing after, I guess, the fulfillment of my purpose and the fulfillment of humanity while we are here. So I don't. It's not solely about money. I believe the money will come. Now, granted, I would love if the money ran to me a little bit faster, but I mean, even in the end, you know, I'm not doing what I do for money. I like music. I want an album. I like writing. I want to, express myself that way. I I mean, I can act a little bit. I love speaking. I adore that. You know, but I do this stuff because it's who I am. I've done it for years, whether or not I've been paid to do it. And I know some people will get into the fine detail and the nuance of it and be like, "Well, you don't do it every week. You don't do it every day." I don't have to. I don't have to. There's plenty of people, and this is my faith speaking, but this is also the truth. I could do it once in 10 years, and if God decided He wanted to blow on that one thing and cause millions of people to like it, that's all that matters. It is God who gives a man the ability to obtain wealth and be successful. So at the end of the day, I have definitely learned, pray. If that's what you want, if that's what's God putting on your heart, pray for it, ask for it, partner with God on receiving that. You know what I'm saying? And I can definitely be honest, over the years that I've done a lot of this stuff, I wasn't praying. I was just doing it. I was just doing it. But now I'm definitely at a place. I was praying for that. I was praying for a lot of stuff. I was praying for a lot of stuff. One of the biggest things I was praying for was that the people that God was speaking to about me, that they would be obedient, because that's another conversation. But I know for a fact, and don't ask me how I know, but I know for a fact that there were plenty of people who God had gave things for me, and they were not moving. They were not moving on it. And so that ain't got nothing. I mean, it's got a lot to do with me, but it's got everything to do with God, and it's got everything to do with the people, not me. That's why I surrender everything to God, because these things belong to God. And so if you want God to fight, okay, I know God's gonna fight for me, but it's weird to say. I know God will fight better for His things over my things. If it belongs to Him, of course God is gonna defend it. But if it's mine, God doesn't have to do anything, you know. But I know if that makes sense, because I do believe, as a child of God, if you are truly a child of God, what you build for Him is always going to be His, right? But there are children of God who do build things for themselves that God don't have to defend, And I don't know if I really broke that down, but I don't know. Like I said in a video, favor is fair. Proverbs teaches us that, and it says basically, how do you obtain favor? And favor is something you can obtain, because it's the same way you obtain salvation. You have to take it. You have to take it. Salvation is a free gift, and that gift you have to receive. You have to receive the favor of God by how? By being holy, living upright, following God, respecting and loving and honoring and fearing the Lord. These are the ways you obtain favor. Living in a way that is morally standing, right? Not having deceit in your heart, not wanting to be scrupulous. What is it? I forget the word, but not being shady in your dealings. These are some of the ways you obtain favor from God. And I know we have a distorted view of favor, but favor closes doors and favor opens it. Favor keeps you from getting in that car accident. Favor keeps you from getting the job that would whore you out, keeping you on the job for more than 14 hours a day, keeping you tired. You don't got no time for your family, your children, whoever it is. You don't got no time for God. God closes those doors. That's favor. I can go down the list of what favor is, because we oftentimes think of the new car, the new house, the husband, the wife, or the brand new beautiful thing. We think of that as favor, but we don't think of the missed quote unquote opportunities or the blessings that didn't transpire as favor. And that's one of the biggest issues we have as believers, and even as people in the world. But to me, yes, favor is fair. Favor is fair. You are someone who admire and love God, and does not get weary at the chastisement of the Lord. You can earn the favor of God. You know. and have the favor of God. Because some people don't like that word earn, but it's the same way you earn your paycheck. Why you don't want to earn the favor of God? I don't understand. We will want to work for everybody else, but God. We want to be faithful stewards to everybody else's thing, but the things of God. That's crazy to me. And I'm getting off topic, but I have been rambling. I love to talk. I really do. I love to talk. But, I honestly don't even know the point of this video besides what was the intent when I first started, cuz I wanted to talk to people about just really relatability, relating to, you know, I have a garden and there's that the tug of war between, okay, this is easier than that, right? And so I wish the fruit coming out of my garden was as easy as the fruit coming from me producing said album, or me going to be a teacher or preacher, or me going to law school, or whatever, right? If the fruit was always apparent. But see, even when you go to school, the fruit is more apparent. You either go 2 years to get your the first degree, 4 years to get the next one, right? There's certification, so there's the expectation date for that. But in certain aspects of life, which I guess I'm talking to artists, I'm talking to creative people, because there is no expectation date on what we do. You just have to trust God and know, how do I nurture this seed, you know and you're not alone. There's plenty of us trying to figure it out and wanting to get through it, and juggling it. But that's why I'm kind of, like I said, I'm glad that, I don't know if I said it in this video, but I am glad that God placed the desire in me to want to, I don't know if it's a farm, but do what I'm doing now, because it really has helped me in a lot of ways. I feel like a lot of the wisdom was always there, but it needed to be drawn out. It needed to be brought to the forefront, because there's some stuff that you really don't even know, but it's because the Holy Spirit is there. And when the time is needed, it comes to the forefront. And, I thank God for these moments, because they show me something deeper than myself. And so, you know, I do hope that we come into contact with something that can help us to advance our causes. And if that's the resource, or if that's, well, resource is knowledge, and knowledge, it can be a resource. But whatever that resource might be, I pray that it is for us and not against us, because everything that looks like a helpful thing is not. Everything that is lawful is not helpful. And so that's why it's best to take every plan and every idea you have and lay it at the feet and lay it at the throne of God. And so, um, I don't know. That is one thing I've learned. That is definitely one thing I've learned. I'm not the kind of spooky Christian that won't move, you know, because I didn't hear God say something. Like I said, go to a place that I will show you. I'm in the automatic position of yes. I'm going. I'm going until I hear the Holy Spirit say no. I'm on the move. I don't have time to be stagnant and waiting and afraid and fearful and questioning every little thing. I am on the move. Until then, that's just gonna be what it is. Cause you know there are some things that are about to happen in my life that, like, when one prophesied, people will regret how they treated me, and that is one thing that is coming to pass very soon. And I added to it, because you got to know how to be prophetic over your own life. While I am yet in the land of the living and doing well, doing extremely well, people will regret how they treated me, because that's for God's glory. Some of us are going to have Joseph moments, but you got to realize it is for the exhortation and the lifting up of the name of Jesus that those moments occur, right? So we can display forgiveness, and we can display um the benefit, right, of loving God, or cuz I mean, sometimes it has nothing to do with loving God. People, so a lot of people mistreated me when I was young, and that doesn't have anything to do with God. Some people are well, no, it don't. I never blame God for anything, but I also don't believe it just had anything to do with God. Some people were just mean, but that even in that, God is going to use that get a witness, out of me for that moment, right? And for many others. And so I don't know, it's just one of those things that it's going to happen. And I mean people near and far, because hey, people don't know. I'm not gonna say I'm known internationally, but I got people I know in Rio, well not Rio, Brazil, but now they in France. I got people I know over in Germany. I got people from all over that I know that know of me, because and I'm pretty sure most of us, well, not most of us, but there's few of us that do, But either way, I'm I'm in here. Don't stop learning. Learn, seek knowledge. Seek the intuitiveness and the wisdom and the love and the faith, the hope of God. Seek that first. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. Seek righteousness. Seek, how do I live faithfully? How do I worship? How do I walk and talk in a way that is acceptable in the eyes of Christ and God? Seek that stuff, and then every other thing will be added unto you. God will start giving you a little unction to do this and do that. You don't know why you doing it, but it's going to be added to you because you put him first. You put the things that were holy and pure first, and so I encourage you to live in a way that earns you the favor of God, right? That's not the only reason to live righteously, but I think it's a good encourager to live that way, because I want to be blessed. I wants to be blessed, okay? And so remember to stay positive. Keep that with you, spread it wherever you go. My name is Stefan. If you didn't know, with all that being said, love yourselves and love others. Pray. I if whatever the Lord wanted to release, it's okay. Later.